Will the crazy purple color of this Porsche 964 Jubilee break sales records on BaT, or will the softening market bring nothing but crazy sadness to the seller? Let's find out.
Bit Nerds is your daily YouTube card game show, where we predict the online auction results of the most interesting cars on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, Haggerty Marketplace, and more. It's just like the Price is Right game show. Play along and see if you can beat the nerds.
We found a 1993 Porsche 911 Carrera 4 30th Anniversary Jubilee Edition on Bring a Trailer this week. This car is located in Santa Barbara, California, was imported, showing 35,000 kilometers, which equates to just 22,000 miles. This is a car or a model that was never brought to North America. So this is unobtainium on our shores, and a really cool car that only just a couple of years ago became eligible for the importation on the 25-year exemption into most of the lower 48 in the United States. So cars like this are starting to show up more and more, and this particular one looks to be outstanding. While you could have gotten this car in just about any color, the majority of the 911 that Porsche built for the rest of the world came in this really cool viola metallic paint with what they call a Rubicon gray draped leather upholstery. The Rubicon gray has like almost a gray lavender look to it. And so JP, when you get to one of the interior shots, stop so we can take a gander at that beautiful gray leather. It's not for everybody. Most people probably don't like it. But matched with this colorway and knowing that this is a special edition and how cool these cars are, it doesn't offend me the way it does gray interiors do on a lot of other Porsches. I would be totally fine with this car with the full Rubicon gray leather interior. It doesn't bother me. These photos aren't very good, but yeah, you can kind of get a sense that there is just a little couple of drops of purple in the dye that they used for the upholstery. So when they went to dye it gray, they dropped some purple in there as well. Super cool cars, numbered to 911. This one is number 540. These cars were basically to celebrate Porsche's 30th anniversary of the 911. And they did so by making these wide body, normally aspirated, no wing, all-wheel drive Carreras, base Carreras. And like I said, most of these cars were Viola. There's a heavy handful that are amethyst metallic, which look pretty good, especially when they couple the amethyst with like a black leather interior. That'd be a really cool way to get a Jubilee. They brought a car similar to this in 1994, but they weren't called Jubilees. But they brought this package, and you could order them in any color in 1994, and they made about, I think, 265 of those for the U.S. market. But to get one of the numbered cars, you have to go across the pond and import one yourself. Somebody brought this one over already. It is, I believe, on a Montana title in the name of the Sellers LLC. But here you go. The car we could never get, the 30th anniversary. Now, John, before we go any further, let me just take one last moment of calm and peace and enjoy the photos of this car, because I know how much you hate special editions and you think they're overbloated and overpriced. And now go ahead and poop all over this car.
Who's pooping? There's no pooping. I'm not pooping. I like this car. It's a nice car. I don't ever think that the extra money is worth it unless it's got, unless it's something, unless it's got like performance upgrades. I think it's all a much ado about nothing. But this is a beautiful car. That is a beautiful color. I'm not a big fan of that interior color, but it's fine. I wouldn't turn this car away. I would way rather have just a black on black one or something like that. And I know that I'm not in. I know that most Porsche people disagree with me on that, and that's fine. That's good, because the good thing about liking stuff that not everybody else likes as much is that I can get what I want cheaper. So I am fine with someone paying way too much for this car because I'll just wait for one that's not so incredibly overpriced. So what's this thing going to bring?
So JP, I'm glad you're sitting down. With 2 days left before the sale ends, before the auction closes, our car is already up to $220,000 on a pretty respectable, I gotta scroll. 17 bids. Gosh, look, a handful of Jubilees have come onto the platform this year. I don't think we saw a handful the previous couple of years combined. So there are a few of these cars in the United States, but this might be one of the lowest miles. And they've got paint meter readings. It looks like it's in all spectacular condition. It's all original paint. Seems to have very good documentation. This might be the nicest one in the country. And so I'm going to tell you that this, I think, is kind of 964s are strong. This is a blue chip 964. JP, I'm all in on this car. I'm not even going to hesitate. I'm going to go $285,000 where this car will sell.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those cars that I think is subject to the current, call it a correction, I guess, or whatever, because I think a year ago this car would easily have been, getting it. You could get to 300 with something like this, but I don't think that's going to happen. Will it even go as high as you're saying? I think it's taller. How many miles does this thing have on it again?
Let me read it to you because it just clicked off. It's 22,000 miles, which is 35,000 kilometers. 22,000 miles. That's
22,000 miles. That's pretty low. Yeah. And you're saying 285. I'll park it under you, not far though. Cause we've seen lesser ones go in the mid twos to, $250,000 or whatever. And I think that generally, if they have normal miles, they're having a hard time even breaking 200 anymore. But this one being special and all that stuff, I'm just going to go 250, 964. And say that, you know what? I'm excited to see some disagreement here in the nerd herd. People are going big. They're saying over 300. They're going boom. Anthony thinks 300 grand is where it's at.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you very much. Somebody understands.
Bob's at 301. Buddha's parking it he's right under you at 293. Anthony's saying 22 grand. What is that about? I think he's talking about something else. 22,000 miles. He's answering my question. Sorry, I'm a little slow to the take there. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. This is a really freaking cool car. Huh?
Anthony's hosting the show from the comments.
Yeah, right. And just have him come on here and just do this for me. Yeah, I think it's gonna. Yeah, I guess. I kind of go back to the car that, the last car that we were talking about that was kind of held, that Scirocco that was an import car. This is also an import car. So I think it's going to be hard for it to get into that 300 range. I mean, look, we have friends that have imported 993 RSs and roofs and stuff like that. And those cars, because they're imported from other countries, are worth less than the ones that were dedicated to being here. But I don't know. All right. Well, the nerd herd is speaking. Chris thinks it's 299 964. So Hans thinks it's 311. Wow, he's going big time. Randy's there with me. All right, I feel good. Randy's usually pretty good at this. Randy's at 255. So he must be right on this one. Vampire Bear 13. Look, the nerd herd is just getting bigger. We've got a new nerd herd member, Ann. Welcome, Ann, to the nerd herd. That's awesome to see her joining us. And it's crazy people will pay an extra $100,000 for a special color. Damn straight, Vampire. That's just so dumb to me. I do not get it.
That's Porsche.
That's the Porsche. It's so Porsche. Yeah, it's true. Ross in New Zealand thinks 275 seems reasonable, and Ann is coming in. She's in the over 300 club at 306. All right. Well, come back on Wednesday, and we'll find out how much this car actually closes for, or if it even closes at all. This thing might fail to sell. Who knows? The person that owns it, what do you think the reserve is on something like this? Do you think they're reasonable?
Well, I think the reserve is close to your number. I bet the reserve is around 250 grand. And I think that the guy who brings it to market is confident that this, or at least in his mind, thinks it's a $300,000 car. I will agree with the first thing you started off with was a year ago. I think this car could have gotten into the $300,000 range. But by selling it now, especially right around the holidays, it's a little tough for such a blue chip car. Again, it's such a rare occasion to be able to acquire one. I do think that the money will come to this car, which is why I'm over your number and where I'm at 285. But yeah, I think if the reserve is 275, there's a chance this car could fail to sell. But I think it'll get there. It's just the nicest one, and it's such a great car.
Well, we know BAT is pretty on top of reserves these days. They had a moment there where I think there was a big shift in the market. It happened fairly quick, and I think BaT and all the platforms have adjusted pretty well. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair.
John, you and I are nerds of the highest degree, and I'm sure we have, more than a dozen dream cars. But I got to tell you, the first car, this 1993 Porsche 911 Carrera C4 30th anniversary Jubilee edition, is a car they sold in 1993 to the rest of the world. This particular model of the 964 was never sold in North America or in the United States. They made 911 of the Jubilee cars. Most of them were in this kind of gorgeous violet or viola metallic paint, which is this really cool purple. And then of the viola cars, 85-90% of those came with this really unusual Rubicon gray draped leather upholstery. This car is stunning. They're numbered. Our car was number 540 and happened to be, because it's over 25 years, titled in the United States, I think out of Montana in the Sellers LLC. What else is new? But the car is located in Santa Barbara, California. I'm telling you, John, if you or I had FU money, I bet one of the two of us would own this car. Our good friend Sebastian, who's part of the Nerd Herd, has been trying to sell his M491 and take that money and buy one of these cars, even if he has to bring it in himself. But this car is already here. So stunning car, 35,000 kilometers, which is just 22,000 miles. Not only is it a rare car, but this is one rare car in rare condition. A lot of these cars are for sale in Europe. If you go to some of the portals that show you some of the popular European listings, these cars are kind of commonplace over there throughout Europe and Germany, but you rarely see them with under 160,000 kilometers, 200,000 kilometers. I mean, the Europeans drive their cars into the ground. This car's clearly been garaged and pampered and clearly used only on loving occasions. It was never somebody's daily or a car that was just driven every weekend, that kind of thing. This is a car that's been really looked after. So now it's in the United States. It shows up on Bring a Trailer. We look at it, and we just went goo-goo over it. I love this car. The only option, John, which we didn't really talk about, is this car doesn't have sports seats. That's about the only thing on here that would have made it a tinge nicer. I'm not entirely positive either you or I could fit in the sports seats, but you'd always want one with the sports seats, even if you had to squeeze in there. But super nice car, manual transmission, all-wheel drive, normally aspirated Carrera. I spent too much time on it already. I said that I thought this car would sell for $285,000. John, you took the under, saying that cars like this, despite the numbered whatever, the market is soft, inflation is up, blah, 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 drinking game. Here, let me go ahead and do that. Yeah, that this car would come in at around $250,964. Do you have any bids to pull up from the herd?
Looks like Chris Carbine said it would. No, this doesn't quite make sense. I was 72.5. Something's wrong there.
Yeah, Carbine saw when the thing closed, and he was saying that him and a couple of the nerds were right at that 300 mark.
Yeah,
which would put them close, because the car did sell, despite having a reserve, for $296,400. So that's number 2, 96400. A couple of the herd members were on either side of that number, so nobody got a Yahtzee, but they, a couple of the guys who were watching came really, really close. So, John, without going too far into this, I know you and I love the car. Are you surprised that this car, which you thought might be softer than I thought? Again, we both agreed this was a $300,000 car 6 months ago, but this is still a $300,000 car. Is it because of the low miles and the rare numbered whatever, or is there something else going on here that we missed? What do you think? How do you decipher that result?
I don't know. There's a lot going on right now in the world, right? And I think, look, we always talk about let's go ahead and, but where's the there's sorry. No, that's not the right thing here. I'm trying to hit the right button there. But anyways, the drinking game thing, inflation, right? We talk about we haven't really talked about inflation a whole lot lately.
But you'd never say it.
We, I used to go on long rants about it, but I think I've kind of been off of that for a minute. Not because I don't think inflation is still a really big problem and a really big thing and is legit, and it's definitely affecting the values of cars. But I think that interest rates are also, there's already been talk of interest rates dropping sometime.
Do you think that will happen? You teased it, or not teased it, but you presented that last week, and I hadn't heard that. And you said they're talking about not only doing it, but doing it repetitively throughout the year. If they execute 6 reductions, that'd be every 2 months the interest rates would come down.
Yeah, I mean, there's talk of like 500 to 800 bips, which is a basis point, which is a percentage. It's like they've broken. It used to be back in the day. Deeb and I are pretty old. Back when we were coming up, percentage rates, an increase from the feds meant 1% or 2, right?
Yeah.
Now they broke down a single percent to 100 basis points, and they call it a bip, right?
Yeah.
So when they say, we're reducing it by 50 bips. It gives them more latitude to play around when they're playing around with not a whole lot. I personally think that interest rates should stay high for the foreseeable future because inflation is not down, people. They're telling us that inflation is down, but they're talking about inflation from
last year.
From last year. It's still up over, 3 years. Right. It's still way up. And they're not even saying over last year. They're saying like over the last quarter, usually when they say it, right?
Yeah.
Or the last time they did a report. So it's total bullshit what they're trying to, the way they play this game.
That's the work of the spin doctors, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
When some expert says that inflation is down, what they're actually saying is that inflation hasn't gone up as much as it has in before. But it's still up, right? So if you start at 0 and then a year later it's 10%, and then 2 years later it's 10%, that's 20% over 2 years, kids. This is some basic math. But then in the third year, if it only goes up 5 points or 8 points, right? They're like, oh, look, we did our job. Inflation's down. It's like, no, it's not. I mean, go to the grocery store and try to buy, some beef, some ground meat. It's crazy expensive. Or those bag of Cheetos. Remember when a bag of Cheetos in 2019 was like $1? Now you go into a 7-Eleven and it's $3. And
hit me with a Venmo and I'll pay you for this.
You owe me $3.50. Those are the expensive ones because the little ones.
Yeah.
Look, inflation is still definitely a thing. So when we see, not only are prices coming down, because usually when you say inflation's going up, that means prices go up. But now we're kind of in this scary place where, everyone's buying power has been ripped apart. So everyone's getting really kind of tight with their money. So now not only are the prices for things like cars going down, even enthusiast cars that have been have always been a little bit of an insulation compared to normal used cars. But I think these classic cars are still a bit of a hedge, just like any commodity would be, or just like any, if the value of your money goes down, usually the value of hard goods, durables goes up, but not if there's just tons and tons and tons of supply, which is what's going on right now. There was a real big shortage of supply in cars for the last 2-3 years. Right. And there was a lot of excess capital floating around, a lot of excess liquidity, is like they like to say, when people have a lot of money, when the feds are just printing and buying up all the doing that quantitative easing stuff again. So right now, they're not doing quantitative easing, but they are still printing. The government is still spending gobs and gobs of money, and that money goes into the system somehow. So even though interest rates are up, they've still printed money. Usually what they do is they raise interest rates and lower spending, but what they're doing right now is they're raising interest rates and increasing spending, and it's just jacking everything up. So I think we're still in for a rough road, but I think it's probably fair to say that the powers that be are going to try to continue to juke the numbers rolling into an election season, because the guys that are in power do not want a bad economy as you go into an election. I'm not saying which guy or guys or gals you should be voting for. I'm not saying any of that kind of stuff. I think it's just intuitive. It's just pretty obvious that when someone's in power, they don't want to create reasons for people not to vote for them. And so it behooves them to at least try to fake the economy and make sure it's still moving, and so that people aren't stressing the hell out as they go into that voting booth or, their kitchen table or wherever the heck you vote for them nowadays, since you don't have to actually go anywhere. So yeah, what's that mean? What's that going to mean for classic car prices? Are classic cars a good place to hedge against potential continued inflation? Are we going to see a ton more inflation if interest rates go down? My guess is yes. So find some place to put your money that's not currency, I'm guessing. And that's probably why we're seeing a rip in crypto right now.
Mm-hmm. So do you think this $300,000 is a good price paid for a rare sort of blue chip 964?
I do, given the fact that I think in 6 months, $300,000 is not going to be worth nearly as much as 300 is now. It's good if he converts that 300 grand into something that will be a hedge. And would the car have been a better hedge? Would he have been better off to keep it in the car and just waited it out? I don't know. With inflation, unfortunately, a lot of people have a hard time buying, though. So,
what bums me out, John, is that like this car comes to our shores. It trades for a retail price on Bring a Trailer. It's on a domestic title now, and at 38,000 or whatever it was kilometers. The other part that bothers me is I don't think the new owner is going to, he paid a premium price for this car. I don't think he's going to drive it. He's going to sit in a garage and he's going to hedge or collect or whatever it is that his perspective, his perception is of his money. It bums me out that like such a high price was paid that I doubt we'll see somebody spend 300 grand on a rare 964 and then go out and drive it on a professor run. And that's just, F you.
Isn't that always the case though?
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about that all the time, that these beautiful cars that we love
and don't get to see,
and we are into, we drive them. And I guess that's this, or, I mean, there you go, you guys. If you're watching this, let us know in the comments. Do you think that this car was well bought? Is this okay that this car is just going to be sitting there? Are you watching the show? Is part of the reason why you watch the show because you're a driver? Or do you watch the show because you're a collector and you're wanting to see, values of cars and find out where to park your money? Hey guys, thanks for watching this clip of the Bid Nerds podcast. Play along with us live every Sunday and Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. on YouTube. And see if your bids stack up to the rest of the nerd herd in the chat live. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Nerd! Get those nerds!